So, Wayne, to start with, it's worth talking about Manchester United. Is there any update, please, on Sir Jim Ratcliffe's stake sale? Sounds like there could be a potential breakthrough.
Yes, the deal has been close to being done for many weeks now. My understanding is that it is literally almost done, and it will be announced early next week that he has a 25% share of Man United and will take control of football operations straight away. So it's absolutely monumental for Man United. It changes lots of things on the football side, and it could and is likely to herald sweeping changes behind the scenes.
What do you think it means for the immediate future of the club? If we look at it objectively for the next 6 months until the end of the season, what changes could potentially happen in that time?
Well, there's already going to be a new chief executive coming in because Richard Arnold's departure was announced recently. My understanding is there will be a new director of football coming in. They've been discreetly behind the scenes sounding out potential candidates for that role. There's a few top targets, one of whom is already at a Premier League club, Dougie Freedman. He is very much top target. He's sporting director at Crystal Palace and has extensive Premier League experience. Paul Mitchell's another one who's been mentioned, the Monaco director of football, who was previously at Tottenham. My understanding is that he is not a top contender at this stage. And Dougie Freedman, who is also Alex Ferguson's neighbour, interestingly enough. He is currently most likely to get that role. John Mert is the current football director. I think the title is, or the titles do change at different clubs. I'm told he is almost certain to leave soon after the Ratcliffe takeover or part takeover goes through.
I mean, Paul, I wanted to touch on talking about Old Trafford. You, of course, were there yesterday at the game for Manchester United against Chelsea. Sounds like Ratcliffe's prepared to spend quite a decent amount of money, just shy of £250 million, to improve the club's infrastructure. But of course, Old Trafford at the moment, as everyone keeps joking, is certainly not in a good state. What did you make of the ground when you went to it yesterday?
Well, I was working for 5 Live and I sat with Ian Dennis and I said, we sat there and looked at the stadium and I went, do you know what, all the reports and everything, the press lounge, they've spent money on the press lounge, they've spent money behind the scenes. And the stadium, when you sat in the stadium, it's a fantastic arena. It's one of the best arenas that we've got in this country. When you go into the bones of the structure of the skeleton of the stadium, there's obviously an issue because it's so old. But actually, when you sit there and you look at the arena you're in and you go to watch a football match, it's incredible. And I said that to Ian and he turned to me and he went, yeah, but if it rains, it leaks on us, we get wet here. So that just gives you a little bit of an idea as to what state it's in. It's all good from the outside, but the media lounge, they've done all that. And interesting enough, picking up on Wayne's point with this, the temporary CEO, if you like, Patrick Stewart, he was in the media lounge last night before the game. They were on a real charm offensive, Manchester United, before the game, because as we know, they'd banned some media outlets from press conferences, from some the manager's press conferences this week. The new CEO was walking around and he was introducing himself and talking to the media that were present before the game last night, which I found very interesting.
So one thing you weren't expecting to pack then to Old Trafford yesterday was your umbrella. That's the one piece of clothing or an item that you weren't expecting to take. Talking of, I mean, the media outlets generally, if we just focus on that, in the build up to the game, of course, as you mentioned, Paul, that 4 media outlets, including Sky, were banned from the press conference. Wayne, what did you make of that generally from the club, claiming that actually they didn't have enough time to sort of defend the claims that were being made? Do you think that's a bit ridiculous?
I think there's quite a few elements to this story. I think it's clearly because there's 4 outlets running the same information at the same time. It doesn't need the deduction qualities of Hercule Poirot and Miss Marple to work out that that's the same source or likely same sources going to that organisation. And what is interesting for me is not whether it's true or not, because clearly Ten Hag has issues managing his players. I've written stories over the last few months that he's fallen out with players and that the dressing room has not been impressed how he handles them, and his man management methods are very much questioned by the players. So I have no doubt about the veracity of the information. It's interesting, though, in terms of where has the information come from and the timing of it. And the big sort of thing that stands out is this takeover is about to go through. will be announced in a few days, and suddenly there's some very, very negative media about the manager, which seems to be preparing the way for a potential change of manager. That is my take on it. I think it's clearly come from the same source to all the outlets, and questioning Ten Hag to a level where he's had to sit there and start his press conference and defend himself, which isn't very pleasant for any manager. Obviously, manager Man United, you're always going to be under immense scrutiny, but I think it's preparing the way for a potential change of manager. That's my take on it.
Well, I think it's interesting because Ten Hag said in that press conference, Wayne, what you just said then, when he immediately finds himself defending himself to the owners, and I use words like, they have to trust in me, they have to trust in the process, they have to trust in the project, we're doing this, we're doing that. And he's almost trying to send a message indirectly through what he's saying in the press to the new ownership, to the new infrastructure, what's going to be coming in above him.
Sorry.
So, yeah, and, obviously Man United's results have been very iffy this season. They've only been able to beat the bottom 10 Premier League clubs. I mean, Chelsea, I think, are 10th on the table. They beat them last night, which is a great win, obviously. But nonetheless, there are massive question marks. Champions League form has been really, really poor, knocked out of the League Cup as well. And they seem to have gone backwards this season. And I mean, I was told a few weeks ago that it was almost certain that Sir Jim Ratcliffe and the new regime would look to change the manager, and that Roberto De Zerbi of Brighton was a top target. De Zerbi could still, nonetheless, agree a new Brighton contract. He could use that interest from Man United to get improved terms at Brighton and potentially stay and see out the season at Brighton, and then have his pick of the clubs at the end of the season.
I mean, he said, one thing, Paul, you just touched on, I think was really interesting, was one of the other things he mentioned was that he had to reset the standards when he, were coming into the club because things weren't right. But actually, arguably, things haven't been right since Sir Alex Ferguson left. So, you've got a decade's worth of issues that are going on. How do they actually stop this rot to go forwards? Because it just seems that Ten Hag is in a lose-lose situation at the moment.
Well, listen, everybody harps on about the Sir Alex Ferguson era, and it hasn't been right since then. I mean, it's been 10 years since they won a title. I mean, last year they finished third, they won a League Cup, and that was the first trophy in 6 years. And I think we all kind of sniggered a little bit at Ralph Rangnick. We all looked at that appointment and we were surprised by that appointment. But something he said when he left was quite telling, and it lingers, that the club needs open heart surgery, is how he put it. And that's, when you look at it like that, we open this conversation about the stadium, the infrastructure, the structure of the board, the team. Everything at Manchester United is underperforming. And the more you think about it, the more you link it back to that statement. Everything at the Manchester United is not functioning how it should be. And we look how many years ago Sir Alex Ferguson was there, and it was. And we're all guilty of comparing it to that because that's our generation, if you like. And you always compare and you always expect success from Manchester United, who are one of, if not the biggest clubs in the world. Erik ten Hag's got a huge job on his hands. Whether he's the right man to do that or not, it's still to be proven. I don't see it. I think there's too many noises coming out of the dressing room. I think there's too much unrest at the club. There's too many players that are making noises as to his training methods. They're talking and saying that we're running too far, that the training's old school, we're not happy with this. But how often does the tail wag the dog at Manchester United? Is that another manager that the players are going to get rid of? Is it the players that are at fault? There's far too many issues at Manchester United that need resolving. And Jim Ratcliffe, as a minority shareholder, is going to have the strongest voice in football for a minority shareholder, that's for sure.
So, Wayne, to start with, it's worth talking about Manchester United. Is there any update, please, on Sir Jim Ratcliffe's stake sale? Sounds like there could be a potential breakthrough.
Yes, the deal has been close to being done for many, many weeks now. My understanding is that it is literally almost done, and it will be announced early next week that he has a 25% share of Man United and will take control of football operations straight away. So it's absolutely monumental for Man United. It changes lots of things on the football side, and it could and is likely to herald sweeping changes behind the scenes.
You've just watched a segment from Football Insider's brand new podcast, The Inside Track, with me, Lewis Pearce, alongside the guests on the show. Thanks very much for tuning in. Please do give the video a like, comment your thoughts on the topic, and feel free to share on your social media pages. If you want to listen to the full podcast episode, click the link in the description below. Keep your eyes peeled for plenty more content and exclusives here on The Inside Track.